The morning sun cast long shadows across the sprawling command deck of the Zephyrian warship as it hung in the darkness above Earth's moon. Commander Vexthul stood 9 feet tall with metallic scales that caught the light from the distant star. His 4 eyes studied the blue planet below with the cold calculation of a predator examining potential prey. "Report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of 3 centuries spent conquering worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. "Science." Officer Kralvin approached with measured steps, her scaled hands manipulating a holographic display that showed detailed scans of the planet below. The 3rd planet contains a single dominant species calling themselves humans. Population approximately 8 billion individuals across all continents. Vexthul watched the data stream past his vision. Temperature readings, atmospheric composition, biological scans of the creatures below. Everything pointed to the same conclusion that had made this conquest assignment so simple. Physical capabilities? Minimal natural defenses. No claws, no armor plating, no enhanced strength. Average height 5 to 6 feet. They appear to be omnivores but show strong preference for agriculture over hunting. Kralvin paused her report to highlight specific data points. Their technology level suggests they have barely achieved basic space travel. The commander moved closer to the viewing portal, watching the small ships that orbited the planet like insects around a light. Human vessels moved with primitive propulsion systems that left visible exhaust trails. Their largest military craft measured no more than a few hundred meters in length, tiny compared to the 5-mile-long Zephyrian dreadnoughts that now surrounded their world. "Threat assessment?" Vexthul asked, though he already knew the answer. "Negligible. Our preliminary classification lists them as docile herbivores with limited territorial instincts, perfect candidates for integration as a servant species." Kralvin manipulated her display to show comparative analysis with other conquered worlds, similar to the Kalari from Sector 7, though with even less aggressive tendencies. Far below on Earth's surface, Dr. Jake Martinez stood in the emergency session chamber of the United Earth Council. The orbital station had been hastily converted from a research facility to humanity's first and likely last line of diplomatic defense. Through the reinforced windows, the massive alien ships hung like dark clouds against the starfield. Admiral Lisa Grant studied the tactical displays with the calm focus of someone who had spent 40 years preparing for scenarios that everyone hoped would never occur. The alien vessels showed no signs of aggressive movement, but their very presence spoke of capabilities that made Earth's combined military forces look like children playing with toys. Preliminary scans suggest the lead vessel alone outmasses our entire orbital defense grid, she reported to the assembled representatives from every nation on Earth. "We're looking at technology that's centuries ahead of anything we've developed." President Alex Carter sat at the head of the conference table, his weathered face showing none of the fear that gripped everyone in the room. He had led his country through economic collapse and natural disasters, but nothing had prepared him for this moment when humanity faced its first contact with an alien civilization. "Have they attempted communication?" he asked. "Negative, sir. They've been scanning us for 3 days, but no direct contact." Lisa pulled up additional displays showing the alien ships' positions. "They're positioned in a standard blockade formation around our planet. Whatever their intentions, they're making sure nothing leaves Earth without their permission." Jake adjusted his glasses as he reviewed the first contact protocols that had been theoretical exercises just 1 week ago. The aliens appeared to be waiting for something, though what remained unclear. Their ships maintained perfect formation. Their scanning beams swept across Earth's surface with methodical precision, but they made no move to communicate or attack. The first message arrived on the 4th day. The alien transmission cut through every communication system on Earth simultaneously. Radio, television, internet, emergency broadcasts. Even private military channels carried the same cold, mechanical voice speaking words that had been translated by technology far beyond human understanding. "Primitive species of planet designation, 742 Earth. You will submit to Zephyrian Imperial Authority. Resistance will result in your reclassification from protected livestock to eliminated pest species. You have 72 hours to signal your compliance." The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving 8 billion humans staring, at screens that had returned to normal programming as if nothing had happened. President Carter addressed the world that evening from the emergency bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. Every surviving government had relocated to hardened positions in the hours since the alien ultimatum, though everyone understood that if the aliens wanted to destroy Earth's leadership, no bunker would provide meaningful protection. "Fellow humans," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of speaking possibly the last words of human independence. "We face a choice that no generation before us has confronted. We can surrender our freedom to an alien empire that sees us as livestock, or we can stand together as we have in our darkest hours throughout history." On the Zephyrian command ship, Vexthul reviewed the human responses with growing satisfaction. Their military forces had gone to high alert, but showed no signs of preparing for actual combat. Their leaders spoke of resistance, but their actions suggested the typical pattern of a prey species facing inevitable domination. "They're behaving exactly as predicted," reported Tactical Officer Mordan. "Defensive posturing, territorial clustering around population centers, attempts to hide their leadership, classic herbivore response to predator presence." Vexthul nodded, already planning the details of the conquest. The humans would submit within the 72-hour deadline, as all intelligent prey species eventually did when faced with overwhelming predator superiority. Then would come the processing, the integration into the empire as a servant class, the careful management of their population to ensure maximum productivity. The Zephyrian Empire had perfected this process across 3 millennia and hundreds of conquered worlds. They had learned to identify the signs of a species' surrender before the species themselves realized they had given up hope. The humans were displaying all the right indicators. But as Vexthul studied the data flowing from Earth's surface, he failed to notice the subtle patterns that didn't fit the standard prey species model. The way human military units were repositioning themselves not for defense, but for something else entirely. The increase in communication traffic that suggested coordination rather than panic. The movement of civilian populations that looked less like evacuation and more like preparation. The Zephyrians had spent so long as the galaxy's apex predators that they had forgotten a fundamental truth about the universe. Sometimes what looked like prey was simply a predator that hadn't yet decided to hunt. The 72-hour deadline passed without human surrender, though this surprised no one aboard the Zephyrian fleet. Prey species always needed a demonstration of predator superiority before accepting their fate. Commander Vexthul ordered the invasion to commence at dawn on what the humans called Tuesday. The first wave of Zephyrian dropships descended through Earth's atmosphere like metallic rain, their energy shields deflecting the primitive missiles that human defenders fired desperately into the morning sky. Each ship carried 50 Zephyrian warriors, genetically enhanced soldiers who stood 8 feet tall and possessed strength that could crush human bones with casual effort. Captain Ben Rodriguez crouched behind the ruins of what had been a subway entrance in downtown Manhattan, watching the alien warriors stride through the streets with the confidence of apex predators who had never encountered meaningful resistance. His squad of 12 Marines looked like children next to the towering aliens, their small arms fire bouncing harmlessly off the advanced armor that encased each Zephyrian soldier. "Fall back to secondary positions," Ben spoke into his comm unit, watching another human defensive line collapse under the methodical advance of alien forces. Pattern Delta 7, all units. The Zephyrians monitored human communications with the casual interest of scientists studying the death throes of a laboratory specimen. Their translation software easily decoded the tactical codes, revealing what appeared to be the desperate retreat of a broken species. The humans spoke of secondary positions and tactical patterns, but their actions showed the clear signs of military collapse. What the aliens failed to recognize was the coordinated nature of the human withdrawal. Each retreating unit moved according to plans that had been developed during the 3 days of preparation following the ultimatum. Every abandoned position had been prepared with careful attention to detail that spoke of intelligence rather than panic. Dr. Emma Sullivan worked in her laboratory complex 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains, surrounded by the most advanced equipment that human science could provide. Her team of 50 researchers had been analyzing the fragments of Zephyrian technology that orbital telescopes had detected during the aliens' approach to Earth. Their armor operates on a harmonic resonance principle, she reported to General Paul Harrison through the encrypted communication system that connected every major military installation on Earth. The energy fields that make them nearly invulnerable to our weapons have a specific frequency that maintains structural integrity. Paul studied the data from his command bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching tactical displays that showed Zephyrian forces advancing across 6 continents simultaneously. The aliens moved with the systematic efficiency of a species that had conquered hundreds of worlds using identical tactics. "Can we disrupt the frequency?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer would require time that humanity might not have. "We can, but we need 72 hours minimum to build devices capable of generating the necessary harmonic pulse. The power requirements alone will require modifications to our entire electrical grid. Then, we buy you 72 hours. What followed was not the desperate last stand that Zephyrian tactical doctrine predicted, but something far more dangerous. Human forces across the globe began implementing strategies that had been developed not by military academies, but by millions of years of evolution on a world where only the smartest predators survived. In London, resistance fighter Kate Williams led her team through the underground tunnel system, using the city's own infrastructure as a 3-dimensional battlefield that the aliens had never encountered. The Zephyrians, trained for open combat on worlds where prey species stood and fought according to predictable patterns, found themselves constantly off balance in the cramped, twisted passages beneath human cities. "They're learning our tunnel layouts," Kate reported to her cell commander as she watched Zephyrian patrols begin to avoid certain subway entrances. "But we're learning faster." The key to human tactics was not superior technology or overwhelming force, but adaptation. Every engagement with the aliens provided new information about their weapons, their movement patterns, their communication protocols, and their weaknesses. Human commanders shared this intelligence through networks that the Zephyrians couldn't decode because they weren't based on technology at all. In Chicago, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Clark coordinated 3 separate resistance cells through hand signals and predetermined movement patterns that required no electronic communication. Her forces moved through the urban landscape like a pack of wolves, each individual understanding their role through instincts that ran deeper than training. The Zephyrians detected the coordination but couldn't identify its source. Their intercepted communications showed human units operating with impossible efficiency, despite the supposed destruction of their command structure. Warriors who should have been in complete disarray were instead functioning as parts of a larger organism that adapted to changing conditions faster than Zephyrian tactical computers could analyze. Commander Vex Thul studied the reports from his ground commanders with growing frustration. The conquest of Earth should have been completed within 48 hours. But instead, his forces were reporting casualties that made no sense according to every predictive model in the Zephyrian military database. "Explain to me how a primitive species is inflicting meaningful losses on genetically enhanced warriors using inferior weapons," he demanded of his tactical staff. "Sir, the humans refuse to engage in direct combat. They use ambush tactics, improvised explosive devices, and coordinated strikes on isolated units. They appear to know the terrain better than our orbital scans indicated." Vexthul's 4 eyes focused on the tactical displays with predatory intensity. "They're behaving like scavengers, not prey species. Increase bombardment of their hiding places and force them into open combat." But what the Zephyrian commander failed to understand was that he wasn't fighting scavengers or prey. He was fighting a species that had evolved as persistence hunters, capable of tracking wounded prey across vast distances until their target collapsed from exhaustion. Humans had spent millions of years learning to be patient, to adapt, to turn their environment into a weapon against anything that threatened their survival. As the 5th day of invasion dawned, scattered human resistance cells across the globe received identical coded messages through networks that operated on principles the Zephyrians couldn't comprehend. The messages were simple, transmitted through methods as old as human civilization itself. Church bells rang in specific patterns. Traffic lights flashed in predetermined sequences. Radio stations played songs in carefully chosen orders. Graffiti appeared on walls with symbols that meant nothing to alien translation software but conveyed precise tactical information to humans who had been trained to recognize them. The message was the same everywhere. "The hunt begins at dawn. Dr. Emma Sullivan's resonance disruptors were ready for field testing. But more importantly, humanity had discovered something about itself during those 5 days of apparent retreat. They had remembered instincts that civilization had covered but never eliminated. Predatory capabilities that had made them the dominant species on a world full of creatures larger, stronger, and more naturally armed than they were. General Paul Harrison received reports from every theater of operations confirming the same impossible reality. Human forces weren't just surviving against technologically superior opponents. They were learning to hunt them. All units, this is command, Paul transmitted to resistance cells across the planet. Phase 2 is authorized. Show them what apex predators look like. The trap was sprung in Prague on the 6th morning of the invasion, though the Zephyrians would not recognize it as a trap until much later. A large human military convoy had been detected moving through the eastern districts, too valuable a target for the alien forces to ignore. Commander Vexthul himself led the response force, confident that crushing this show of human resistance would finally break their species' will to fight. Colonel Ryan Baker lay motionless on the roof of a bombed-out apartment building, his sniper rifle trained on the street below where Zephyrian warriors moved with the mechanical precision of a conquering army. His team had been in position for 20 hours, waiting for this moment with the infinite patience of predators who understood that the best hunts required perfect timing. Around the city, hidden human forces prepared to demonstrate why ambush predators had dominated Earth's food chain for millions of years. Dr. Emma Sullivan's resonance disruptors had been distributed to key units, but the real weapon was something the Zephyrians had never encountered in 3 millennia of conquest, a prey species that had forgotten how to be prey. All units. This is Ranger 1. General Paul Harrison's voice crackled through encrypted communications that used frequencies the aliens couldn't detect. Activate resonance disruptors on my mark. Remember, we only get one shot at surprise. The first Zephyrian warrior to enter the kill zone was a squad leader whose armor had survived direct hits from human anti-tank weapons just hours earlier. The harmonic pulse that struck him was invisible, inaudible, and completely beyond the alien's ability to detect until the moment his protective system simply disintegrated. Around him, what followed was not the desperate defense that Zephyrian tactical doctrine had predicted, but something far more terrifying. The humans stopped running. Sergeant Amy Clark emerged from her concealed position behind rubble that the aliens had cleared twice during their advance. Her squad moved with the fluid coordination of wolves surrounding wounded prey, each soldier understanding their role without need for verbal communication. The Zephyrians had expected panic, retreat, the characteristic behavior of herbivores under predator pressure. Instead, they found themselves facing something that moved like apex predators. Target down, Amy reported as her team systematically dismantled a Zephyrian patrol with weapons that suddenly proved capable of penetrating alien armor. Moving to secondary objective, Ryan's rifle sang its deadly song from a building the Zephyrians had supposedly secured hours earlier. Each shot was placed with surgical precision, targeting the weak points in alien armor that human intelligence had identified through careful observation of enemy casualties. The aliens had assumed their dead warriors were victims of lucky hits by primitive weapons. But luck had nothing to do with the methodical elimination of their forces. In the sewers beneath Prague, Kate Williams led strike teams that appeared and vanished like ghosts, cutting communication lines and isolating enemy units with tactics that required no advanced technology, only intelligence and coordination. That the Zephyrians had not expected from a prey species. Commander Vexthul watched his tactical display with growing alarm as red indicators representing destroyed or missing units began appearing across the map. The human convoy that had drawn his forces into the city had simply vanished, and his warriors were reporting coordinated attacks from directions that should have been impossible. How are they coordinating these strikes? He demanded of his communications officer. Our jammers should be disrupting their electronic communications completely. Sir, I don't believe they're using electronic communications for coordination. The attack pattern suggests some form of instinctive cooperation that operates below the level of technology. The Zephyrian commander's 4 eyes narrowed with predatory focus. Instinctive cooperation was characteristic of pack hunters, species that had evolved sophisticated social hunting behaviors. But as xenobiologists had confirmed through multiple, scans that humans were herbivorous prey animals with limited aggressive capabilities. What Vexthul was witnessing was 65 million years of mammalian evolution in action. Humans had not developed technology and civilization despite being predators, but because they were predators. The most successful persistence hunters in their planet's history, capable of tracking prey across vast distances and coordinating complex group hunts through methods that required no visible communication. Captain Ben Rodriguez found himself promoted to Major, as his unit successfully eliminated 3 Zephyrian squads using tactics that would have been impossible for any species except apex predators. His soldiers moved through the urban battlefield with an intuitive understanding of terrain, timing, and target priorities that came from genetic programming older than human civilization. "They're not fighting like soldiers," Ben reported to his superiors as his expanded command prepared for the next phase of operations. "They're fighting like hunters." The distinction was critical. Soldiers fought according to doctrine, following predetermined patterns that could be analyzed and countered by enemy intelligence. Hunters adapted in real time, using environmental advantages and prey behavior to achieve kills with maximum efficiency and minimum risk. Dr. Emma Sullivan monitored the effectiveness of her resonance disruptors from her underground laboratory, but the data streaming back from combat zones revealed something far more significant than successful weapons technology. Human forces were learning to fight Zephyrians faster than the aliens could adapt to human tactics. "They're treating every engagement as a learning opportunity," she reported to the Global Command Network. "Each battle provides intelligence that gets incorporated into the next attack. It's like they're evolving combat effectiveness in real time." By sunset on the 6th day, the Zephyrian force in Prague had been completely eliminated. Not scattered, not forced to retreat, but eliminated with surgical precision that left no survivors to report on human capabilities. The aliens had expected to face desperate defenders clinging to doomed positions, but instead had encountered something that hunted them with the methodical efficiency of natural predators. Jake Martinez stood in the ruins of Prague's city center, coordinating the recovery of Zephyrian technology and the processing of intelligence that would be distributed to resistance cells across the planet. Around him, human soldiers moved with quiet confidence that spoke of predators who had successfully brought down dangerous prey. "Get me a secure line to every resistance cell on Earth," Jake ordered his communications team. "It's time to take the fight to them." The success at Prague had ignited something in humanity that 3 millennia of Zephyrian conquest had never encountered. Word spread through every hidden bunker, every survivor enclave, every group of humans who had spent 6 days learning that they were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Admiral Lisa Grant reviewed tactical reports from successful human operations across 6 continents, each one demonstrating the same impossible reality. Humanity was not just surviving against a technologically superior enemy, they were hunting them with increasing effectiveness. "We're not fighting a defensive war anymore," she addressed the expanded military command that now included scientists, engineers, and civilians who had discovered they possessed instincts for warfare that ran deeper than any training. "We're apex predators and we've found worthy prey." The change in human behavior was fundamental and irreversible. Children who had hidden in basements during the first days of invasion were now learning to identify alien weak points alongside their regular studies. Adults who had lived peaceful lives discovered they possessed genetic programming for coordinated hunting that had been waiting for the right circumstances to express itself. Commander Vexthul's report to the Zephyrian High Command that evening contained words that had never before appeared in an Imperial Conquest assessment. "Request immediate reinforcement. Human resistance capabilities exceed all previous intelligence estimates. Species reclassification may be necessary." But the most disturbing element of his report was the final line. "Recommend extreme caution in future engagements. Humans are not behaving like prey." News of the Prague disaster reached the Zephyrian High Command within hours, sending shockwaves through an empire that had never experienced military defeat from a species classified as primitive prey animals. Fleet Admiral Kethros reviewed the battle recordings with mounting disbelief, watching human forces move with tactical sophistication that defied every xenobiological assessment in their databases. "They coordinated like Skarn pack hunters," he muttered to his staff, referencing the most feared predator species in known space. but our scientists confirmed they're passive omnivores with minimal aggressive tendencies. On Earth, the success at Prague had catalyzed something in humanity that the Zephyrians could not have anticipated. Word spread through every resistance cell, every hidden enclave, every group of survivors who had spent a week learning that their species possessed capabilities far beyond anything they had imagined. The prey had remembered how to hunt. Colonel Ben Rodriguez found himself commanding an entire theater of operations as human resistance transformed from desperate survival into coordinated warfare. His expanded forces included not just soldiers, but scientists, engineers, factory workers, and civilians who had discovered they were genetically programmed for something the aliens had never encountered: systematic predation. "We're not defending territory anymore." Ben addressed his command staff in the secure bunker that had become the nerve center for human operations across the eastern seaboard. "We're hunting them." The change in tactics was immediate and devastating. Human forces abandoned defensive positions and began actively seeking out Zephyrian units for elimination. The aliens, trained for conquest warfare against conventional opponents who fought according to predictable patterns, struggled to adapt to an enemy that treated every engagement as a hunting expedition. Dr. Emma Sullivan's research teams had moved far beyond simple resonance disruptors. Using captured Zephyrian technology, they developed weapons specifically designed to exploit every weakness in alien equipment and biology. Human engineering, it turned out, excelled at weaponizing other species' innovations in ways their original creators had never imagined. Their power distribution systems use crystalline matrices that amplify energy efficiency. Emma reported to the growing network of human research facilities that had been established in hardened bunkers across the globe. "If we introduce specific electromagnetic interference, we can cause cascade failures throughout their entire technological infrastructure." General Paul Harrison coordinated what was becoming humanity's first interplanetary military campaign from his command center beneath the Swiss Alps. Intelligence gathered from captured Zephyrians and analysis of their technology had revealed the locations of supply bases, communication relays, and command centers throughout the solar system. "They have installations on Mars, Europa, and in the asteroid belt," Paul briefed his expanded staff, which now included former astronauts, aerospace engineers, and anyone with experience in space operations. Small facilities, lightly defended because they never expected to need heavy fortifications against us. The revelation that humans were not confined to Earth came as a profound shock to Zephyrian strategic planners. A species they had classified as early spaceflight was apparently capable of sustained operations throughout their star system, with infrastructure the aliens had somehow failed to detect during their initial surveillance. The first human assault on an off-world Zephyrian facility occurred just 10 days after the Prague victory. A hastily assembled fleet of converted civilian spacecraft, armed with Emma's weapons and carrying soldiers who had learned to fight aliens by fighting aliens, struck the Zephyrian mining operation on Ceres with surgical precision. Captain Kate Williams, now Admiral Williams and commanding humanity's improvised space fleet, led the assault with tactics that combined human engineering ingenuity with predatory instincts that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Using civilian cargo haulers disguised as refugee vessels, her forces approached the alien facility under the pretense of seeking sanctuary. The Zephyrian garrison, expecting to process another group of human refugees for eventual integration into their empire, instead found themselves facing trained killers who had converted captured alien weapons into instruments of systematic elimination. The attack was a masterpiece of human deception and adaptation. "They're learning our tactical patterns faster than we can develop countermeasures," reported the Zephyrian base commander in his final transmission before the facility was completely overrun. "Human forces demonstrate coordination and strategic thinking consistent with apex predator species." Commander Vexthul, monitoring the destruction of Ceres base from his flagship, experienced something he had never felt in 3 centuries of military service: the cold recognition that he was no longer the hunter. The sensation was alien to every instinct the Zephyrians had developed during their rise to galactic dominance. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled fear, "we're receiving similar reports from installations throughout this star system. Human forces are systematically eliminating our infrastructure using tactics we've never encountered." The most disturbing aspect of human operations was their apparent ability to coordinate complex strategies without relying on the advanced communication systems that Zephyrian forces required for similar operations. Human units operated with pack intelligence that seemed to emerge from genetic programming rather than technological advantage. Sergeant Amy Clark, now commanding a multicellular strike force, exemplified this evolutionary adaptation. Her teams moved through captured Zephyrian facilities like apex predators in their natural environment, each individual understanding their role through instinctive communication that required no technology and left no electronic signatures for alien intelligence to intercept. "We're not just defeating them," Amy reported after successfully securing the Europa facility. "We're learning to think like them, but better. It's like we were always predators and just needed the right prey to bring it out." Analysis of human combat effectiveness revealed patterns that challenged every assumption about species development and technological advancement. Humans were demonstrating capabilities that typically required millions of years of evolution as apex predators, yet they had supposedly evolved as herbivorous prey animals on a world with limited predatory pressure. Dr. Jake Martinez, now coordinating global intelligence operations, had access to captured Zephyrian databases that revealed the true scope of their empire and the significance of humanity's resistance. The aliens ruled over hundreds of conquered species across thousands of star systems, maintaining control through technological superiority and the systematic elimination of any group that showed predatory characteristics. "They're not just an empire," Jake reported to the United Earth Council during an emergency session. "They're a predator species that has eliminated every other predator species they've encountered. For 3,000 years, they've been the only apex predators in known space." The implications were staggering. Humanity represented something the Zephyrian Empire had never faced, a species with the technological capability to threaten their dominance and the predatory instincts to use that capability with systematic efficiency. President Alex Carter addressed the world as reports flowed in from successful human operations across the solar system. Space elevators were being constructed to support the growing human fleet. Asteroid mining operations were providing raw materials for weapons production. Most significantly, human birth rates were increasing as the species responded to the presence of worthy prey, with reproductive strategies that ensured adequate numbers for extended hunting operations. "My fellow humans," Carter announced, 12 days ago we faced extinction. Today we control our solar system. Tomorrow we ensure this never happens to any species again." The transformation was complete. Humanity had awakened from its civilized slumber and remembered what it meant to be the ultimate persistence hunters. The galaxy was about to learn why one species had risen to dominate an entire world despite being physically inferior to most of the predators. They shared it with Commander Vexthul prepared his final report to the High Command, knowing it would likely result in his execution for failure. But the truth had to be recorded, even if it meant acknowledging the impossible. "Humans are not prey," he transmitted. "Repeat, humans are not prey. Recommend immediate species reclassification and deployment of fleet assets for total planetary sterilization before they achieve interstellar capability." But it was already too late. 3 weeks after first contact, Fleet Admiral Kethro stood before the Zephyrian High Council in the crystal chamber that had witnessed the submission of 1,000 conquered species. His scaled hide bore fresh scars from the human assault on his flagship, and his 4 eyes reflected something that had never before appeared in this sacred space: fear. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice carrying the weight of impossible failure, "I must report that our Earth campaign has encountered complete tactical failure across all operational theaters." The silence that followed was profound. Counselor Prime Yethdal, whose lineage traced back to the founding of the Empire, fixed her predatory gaze on the Admiral with an intensity that had caused entire species to surrender without resistance. "Define complete tactical failure." "Admiral," she said, each word carrying 3 millennia of Imperial authority. "We have lost contact with every installation in the Sol system. Intelligence indicates that humans have not only repelled our invasion, but have begun actively hunting our forces throughout their star system. Our casualties exceed 90%. Counselor Zekthon leaned forward, his ancient features showing disbelief that bordered on incomprehension. You're reporting that a pre-spaceflight species has militarily defeated the Zephyrian Empire. Worse than that, honored counselor. They've demonstrated capabilities consistent with apex predator species. We believe our initial classification was catastrophically incorrect. On Earth, President Alex Carter stood before the newly established Terran Defense Council in the chamber that had been carved from living rock beneath the Swiss Alps. The room buzzed with activity as representatives from every surviving nation coordinated humanity's first interstellar military campaign. Fellow humans, Carter began. His voice carried simultaneously to every settlement on Earth and to the growing human colonies throughout the solar system. 3 weeks ago, we faced extinction at the hands of an alien empire. Today, we control our star system. Tomorrow, we ensure this never happens to any species again. The transformation of humanity had been profound and irreversible. Children who had hidden in bunkers during the first days of invasion were now learning xenobiology and weapons engineering alongside traditional subjects. Adults who had lived peaceful lives had discovered they possessed instincts for warfare that ran deeper than civilization itself. Admiral Kate Williams, commanding humanity's rapidly expanding interstellar fleet, reviewed tactical displays showing Zephyrian fleet movements in nearby star systems. The aliens were retreating, pulling back their forces as reports of human capabilities spread through their empire like a virus of fear. They're terrified of us, Kate reported to the Defense Council from her flagship, the converted cargo vessel that had become humanity's first true warship. Intelligence from captured Zephyrians indicates they're classifying us as a Type Omega threat to galactic stability. Dr. Emma Sullivan had discovered the meaning of that classification through analysis of captured Zephyrian databases. Her research teams, now working with technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans had previously developed, had uncovered the Empire's system for categorizing dangerous species. Type Omega, Emma explained to the assembled leadership, represents species that pose existential threats to established galactic order. According to their records, there have been only 3 Type Omega classifications in 10,000 years of galactic history. All 3 resulted in complete restructuring of interstellar civilization. The implications were staggering. Humanity had progressed from unknown to existential threat in less than a month, achieving a level of dangerous capability that typically required millennia of development. General Paul Harrison outlined the new strategic reality in his briefing to world leaders. We're not defending Earth anymore. We're defending the concept of human independence against an empire that views our existence as incompatible with galactic stability. Every intelligence report confirms they won't stop until either they've eliminated us completely, or we've eliminated their ability to threaten us. The choice, when presented in those terms, was simple for a species that had spent millions of years as persistence hunters. Humans would hunt until the threat was eliminated, regardless of how long that hunt might take or where it might lead them. Colonel Ben Rodriguez, now commanding humanity's first interstellar assault division, prepared his forces for operations beyond the solar system. His target was the Zephyrian Regional Command Center at Proxima Centauri, a facility that coordinated alien military operations across dozens of star systems. Remember, Ben addressed his troops, humans who had never imagined they would fight among the stars. We're not conquerors like they are. We're hunters. We hunt until the threat to our pack is eliminated. The human fleet that departed Earth's orbital shipyards represented the culmination of 3 weeks of unprecedented technological and military development. Captured Zephyrian technology had been reverse-engineered and improved by human scientists who approached alien innovations with the systematic thoroughness of predators studying prey. Commander Vexthul sat in his cell aboard the human prison ship, watching through transparent aluminum as human guards moved with the focused alertness of apex predators who had found worthy prey. The beings he had once dismissed as herbivorous livestock now carried themselves with the confident grace of species that had never doubted their position at the top of the food chain. You were right to call us prey, Dr. Jake Martinez said during one of his regular visits to the imprisoned commander. For most of our history, we were prey to something. Wild animals, diseases, natural disasters, each other. But being prey taught us the most important lesson in the universe. Vexthul remained silent, his predatory instincts recognizing something in the humans, eyes that chilled him to his core. It taught us how to become the ultimate predators. As humanity's first interstellar fleet prepared for departure, the Zephyrian Empire began mobilizing resources for what their strategists recognized would be the most significant military challenge in their 3,000-year history. But mobilization took time, and humans had demonstrated an alarming capacity for rapid adaptation and technological advancement. The galaxy watched through various intelligence networks as a species that had been completely unknown just 1 month earlier, prepared to challenge the established order of interstellar civilization. Most galactic powers had assumed that the Zephyrian Empire was a permanent fixture of the universe, as unchangeable as the laws of physics. Humanity was about to prove them wrong. The human fleet that emerged from Earth's gravity well carried more than advanced weapons and determined soldiers. It carried the genetic legacy of a species that had survived ice ages, volcanic winters, and mass extinctions through adaptation, persistence, and an unwillingness to accept defeat regardless of the odds. President Carter's final transmission to the departing fleet carried words that would become humanity's Declaration of Independence from galactic tyranny. You carry with you the hopes of every free species in the galaxy. Show them what happens when predators hunt predators. As the human ships accelerated toward Proxima Centauri, using technology that combined alien innovation with human engineering, the Zephyrian Empire began to understand the magnitude of their error. They had awakened something that had slumbered peacefully among the stars, content to remain on its small blue world as long as it was left alone. But now that something was awake, and it was hungry, the galaxy was about to learn why Earth had produced only one species capable of interstellar travel. Not because humans were the most intelligent or technologically advanced life forms their planet had ever produced, but because they were the only ones capable of the systematic elimination of any threat to their continued existence. The prey had become the predator, and the universe would never be the same.